it's Lexi, and welcome back to another episode of the 20 Effect. I'm so happy that you're here because I have a very special guest with me today. It's kind of crazy how like our paths have just crossed in life and how we're like back together and in the same Bible study now, and we'll kind of jump more into that. But she is one of the most like amazing humans and has the best heart and just such an amazing story. And so I'm so excited to welcome Grace Pekovich to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Grace and I met at Boise State, and it's kind of a funny story of like how we met, and we'll get into that later. But I want to say it was back in January or February.
It had been January because I moved to Phoenix in January.
Okay, yes. So I am involved in, for the past like year and a half, a like young adults group through my church. And so I remember I hadn't come for a while, just busy with like national season and stuff. And then I come and we're sitting there, and we had broken off into girls and guys. And I saw like Grace was a new face to me. And I remember we split off into girls and guys, and we're going around saying our names because there's a lot of new people there. And Grace looks me in the eye and goes, "We know each other." And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, she looks kind of familiar, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
And then you kind of said like, "Oh, Boise State." And I was like,
we follow each other on Instagram.
yes. And then I was like, "Wait, what's your name?" And then she told me her name, and I was like, "Wait, I can literally picture your Instagram profile picture in my head right now." I was like, I don't know why your face wasn't familiar, but I was like, you looked familiar to me. And so just kind of crazy how our paths crossed. And I feel like it was such a God thing.
Totally.
Of us like being brought back together. And so I just felt like I wanted to bring you on the pod to kind of share your story and just like our story of life at Boise State and just kind of where we are now and how like God has worked through our lives. So thanks for coming. But do you kind of want to tell people a little bit about you, where you're from, how you kind of grew up, all that?
Yes, yeah. So I am originally from Boise, Idaho. So I grew up in Boise, Meridian, but basically
same
Boise.
thing.
Same thing to me. It's like 30 minutes away. It's not a big deal. But grew up in Boise, and then played soccer in college. So went to Hawaii for my first year, and then transferred to Boise State. Finished out Boise State. I actually got saved in college. So I became a believer my sophomore year of college. And we can get into more about everything that came after that. But got saved my sophomore year of college. I felt really pulled into ministry junior, senior year. And then moved to Texas to do a residency at a church there. Got placed with Women's and Recovery Ministry. Basically, the residency was just me like learning how to do ministry. Which was so awesome and such a gift, just be in a program that pays you to learn. But seriously, I haven't grown that much in a year, like ever in my life, which was so humbling and so amazing at the same time. And then got a call from after I finished up that residency, because it was a program, ended after a year, looking for jobs, still feeling pulled to ministry. Got a call from a college pastor here at North Phoenix, which is the church we both attend. And he was basically like, "Hey, would you want to come out and do college ministry?" And I'm like, Phoenix? Like, I've never really thought about Phoenix. And then started going through the interview process. It was just so clear that the Lord was calling me here, and having me moving back to Phoenix, or not back to Phoenix, I guess, to Phoenix for the first time. Which is awesome. And took the job in December, moved in January, took the job, I think, mid-December, started my job January 5th. So it was like, quick turnaround.
Seriously.
Which was awesome. And so left Texas, came here, been here since, just finished up my first semester on staff with our college students. It's been such a gift and so fun.
That's amazing. Did you ever see yourself going into ministry? Like, what did you originally want to do? Like, when you went into college, like, what were you studying, all that?
I was a psych major. So I really wanted to be a counselor. And then after I got saved, I'm like, everything's worthless without Jesus. Like, we need Jesus. So I was like, maybe Christian counseling. And then part of my story, which we can get into too, is just a lot of drugs, alcohol, unhealthy relationships. And when I first got saved, I was looking for just women in the church who had a story that I could relate to, that like I could follow and learn from, because I felt like I was so stuck in so many different sins. And I had no idea how to navigate any of it. And I couldn't find like any women who work in a church, who are in the church, who are faithful believers now, but had walked a life similar to me. And I felt just more pulled to ministry of like, man, there needs to be like more women with a story like mine in a church setting. So that's kind of when I first felt like, okay, I want to go to ministry.
Yeah. I love that. And that was just throughout your college journey of kind of finding that path that you wanted to go down.
Yeah. So again, like I think even finishing up senior year, I'm like, I didn't really grow up in a church going family. So going into ministry, I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what do church jobs look like? I know that there's a pastor, but I'm like, obviously not going to be a pastor. So I don't really know. I don't really know what any of that looks like. So as much as I felt called to work in a church, I'm like, I don't know what that even means or looks like. So I'm like, maybe I'll go get a master's in counseling, figure out the whole Christian counseling thing, and then found this residency randomly.
That's so crazy.
Which is crazy. One of my friends knew of a different residency, and I was looking up this church, Harris Creek, which is a church in Waco, which I love. I love them so much. And I was just looking up, and I'm like, maybe they have some sort of program. Like I didn't know what a residency program was, and I saw it. And I'm like, okay, that looks good, and applied and went. And it was, I had no idea what to expect, but so awesome.
I love that, and especially moving to Texas, probably not knowing anyone, and just taking that leap of faith, especially growing up in Boise and then going to school there and everything, and just taking that jump was probably so scary, but worth it. And even moving here to Phoenix. And so what has it been like working with college students? Because it's so fun, but how has it been kind of this semester seeing them and seeing that growth through them?
It's been really sweet. I think our college students are just like amazing. College students are just fun. Like they're just fun.
They're awesome.
We were just talking about this earlier. The comparison of high school students to college students, because I think before going into ministry, in college, after I got saved, I served with our youth students. And it's just such a difference from youth to college, because I feel like youth, they're like, I know what I'm doing, like don't mess with me, like I got it, I totally know, you know.
They think they know best.
They totally do.
I was the same way.
Me
for
too,
sure.
me as well. Thought I knew everything in high school. Got to college and everything hit the fan. Which that's where all these students are at, is everything's hitting the fan. They have no idea what to do, and they don't have anybody telling them what to do. So at first it's like fun, and then they're all of a sudden like, wait, like what do I do? Somebody just tell me what I should do in this situation. And so I feel like I get to meet with so many girls all the time, which is so cool. Sweet, of just like, hey, help me, you know, which there's like such a sweetness in like wanting to figure out how to follow the Lord, and like meeting with girls who are wanting to figure out like, how do I even find my own faith? Like, what does it look like? How do I navigate sin? And then there's also like the heaviness of, you really do just see like the destruction of sin in their lives every single day. So it's so fun, so sweet, and also just like heavy at the same time.
No, I love that. That's so beautiful. And especially with like me and my athletes, just watching like God work in their lives, and especially not being like, you can speak to this too, but not being too far removed from them, but being on the other side of it, and having that kind of guidance, but being like, I was where you were at not too long ago. And so like, not many things have changed since then. Like, yes, they have, but it's like, here's some similarities, and here's how you can kind of be guided and where you can turn to. So that's so beautiful. I love that. But I do kind of want to talk about how Grace and I met. So do you want to tell it, or do you want me to? It's just, it's a funny story.
You start, I'll add.
Okay, sounds good. So from what I remember, I feel like it was maybe during COVID, we had started following each other on Instagram, I want to say. If you were,
because we were running in similar circles.
Yes, for sure. And we were both athletes at Boise, and obviously had similar friends. And I think I had just kind of become friends with like Genevieve and Morgan and stuff. And so I think we had connected through social media, but then we were both, I think it was my junior year, because I think you're a year younger than me, right?
My graduating class was 23.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a year older and like grade wise. And so it was my junior year, your sophomore year, I believe. Yeah. And it was fall. I don't even think school had started yet.
And COVID was weird too.
COVID was so weird.
Was it, am I right, if like only athletes were kind of on campus?
Yes, for a little bit. I think it was like still preseason fall.
Yes.
And like we were already back, but we were kind of practicing, but not because of the COVID protocols. And so.
And then everybody was just partying.
Because there was nothing else to do and like so stupid because it was like COVID. But then we were so bored and so miserable and like so depressed too. And like college is such a pivotal moment. So to go through COVID throughout college, like it was the most insane thing ever.
Honestly.
But Grace and I actually met at a party at Boise State.
We did.
And I remember I was like standing there with my friends and some of the like soccer girls had came and you ran up to me and were like, oh my gosh, you're Lexi. And it was so similar to our Bible study story of like, I looked at her and I was like, wait, she looks really familiar. And I think I said to you, I was like, what's your name again? And you were like, Grace Pekovich. And I was like, wait, yes, we follow each other on social media. So crazy how like the two times that our paths have crossed, it's been like the same story. And I'm awful with names and awful with faces. But for some reason, if we follow each other on social media, I can picture exactly what your profile picture
and I'm like, I know exactly
like.
what you've been posting lately.
So I was like, wait, yes. And then I just remember Grace being like the sweetest person. And we just had like such a sweet conversation. And then I don't really think our paths like crossed much after that.
No.
Honestly. But was that what you remember too?
Yeah, that is what I remember.
Okay.
I remember the party, I think.
Yeah.
I was not ever sober, obviously. So it's also like kind of redemptive and sweet of just like those two times being so similar. But like one, me being filled with obviously alcohol and one just being filled with the Holy Spirit, because I don't think I was a believer when we first met. Which is like really sweet to look back on. That
it's so sweet. And like at that point in my life, like I was going through so much just like family problems and just dealing with a lot of depression, obviously from like COVID, but then just like things going on in my life. I was like really overweight and just like was seeking like joy and happiness from so many things that like weren't Jesus. And that was like such a dark time in my life, junior year specifically. And so I just remember like not being in the best state. So it's just kind of crazy to see the change. And obviously I knew Jesus, like I had accepted him into my life when I was like 8 years old, I think, baptized when I was like 13, but I was not following him at all. It's almost like because of the things that were happening in my life, I was so mad at him that I just like didn't even want to follow him, which is so sad, but I'm so glad for and so grateful for redemption and grace and like the mercy that he shows us, because my life looks totally different now. So but yeah, like you said, it's just so crazy of like the two times, because again I don't think like we probably were in similar areas. I feel like I remember seeing you at church or at the porch with like Genevieve and stuff a couple times, but we never really had a conversation after that, which is kind of crazy. And especially having 2 years at college together after knowing each other, not really running in, like, crossing paths again. And so then to, like, be at the same Bible study, at the same church. Like, there's nothing to describe it other than just God.
I know. And something I remember calling one of my friends afterwards, and just like after our first Bible study when we got reconnected. Yeah. And I just remember being so thankful to the Lord for being like, man, thank you that like our sin didn't get on each other in college. You know? Just like being able to have such a sweet moment of like we've been in the same circles and we know where each other have been. And so there's like, man, I feel a little bit bit more known too,
Yeah,
which is sweet, but also like so thankful that like my sin didn't get over and there wasn't like this weird reconciliation or like hard conversation that we need to have. It was just like, man, we both know where each other has been. It's like we can just kind of move forward as like faithful believers, which is fun.
I remember it being just like so sweet. And even in that Bible study with that group of girls, us as a group kind of talking about like the shame that we feel about our past experiences when we weren't exactly following Jesus, and how like forgiveness is such an amazing thing, and how we can like move past that and like not feel shame anymore towards that. And it might tug at us. And I will say, and I like want to bring up something in a second too, but the enemy will try to use whatever, especially where you are weak in like your shame or your past, to try to like pull you back there and to like sit in that shame and sit in that embarrassment almost. So yeah, just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But okay, so I do kind of want to address something. It's so funny because Grace obviously knows, but I wanted to address it. And then she was like, okay, good. Because if you weren't, I was going to. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So the day that I had launched the 20 Effect podcast on my personal Instagram account, I remember I was just receiving like a lot of love and a lot of like really great things and great people in my life reaching out about it. And I was looking, like, open the Instagram app and kind of scrolling through the comments, and I saw a comment from an anonymous account, and it's always an anonymous account with no profile picture and like the most random name. Yeah. And they had commented on my post. It's still up. You can go see it if you want. But it said, heard you were quite the party girl back at Boise State, ... And I remember just like my heart sunk in that moment of just like feeling so much shame. And my immediate reaction was like, delete it before anyone sees it. And then I just remember calling out to God, like, God, I'm literally following the dream that you placed in my heart. I'm doing this for you. Like, why? And I was like, where did this person even come from? Like, they literally came out of the woodworks and apparently know my entire life story. But I just remember feeling so much shame and guilt and just being like, I think, one, because it was true. And I think it was a very humbling moment of like, this podcast is not about you, and it's not self-focused. Like, this whole point is to like help people and like through that, like, be a light to the world and like have God work through me. So one, I think it was a humbling moment just because like it was true. And two, just kind of like a shock of, who is this person? Like, I tried to become an investigator, figure out who this person was. And so I think just like after a while, I was like, well, actually, I'm just going to respond to them. And then I was like, wait, I don't want to respond out of anger or a place of like shame. I want to respond in a place of peace. And I remember immediately I screenshotted that comment and I sent it to Grace. And you kind of want to talk about just like what you had said, because that just like calmed me so much in order to be able to then like respond to this person.
Yeah. So this is a story that I really love because I feel like this shame is something that I like will struggle with continually. And again, not all the time, not overwhelming, but when some things come up of like, when we were talking about this earlier too, is like when we go back to Boise and you're like kind of around those same people and it just starts to like, you just start to feel like not great about where you've been before. And so the story of the demon possessed man, when Jesus goes and like frees him, and there's this big like, well, he's known as like the demon possessed man of the guy that nobody can talk to. He's like chained away in a cave. Jesus goes, sets him free. And then he immediately, like the demon possessed man who's now free, goes like, let me come with you. Like, I want to come with you. And Jesus is like, no, go home. and tell everybody like what I've done for you.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much power in our stories, and specifically around people who've seen us dead or who've seen us not walking with the Lord, to now see us free and no longer chained by drugs, by alcohol, by unhealthy relationships, whatever that looks like. And there's also a hard tension of, man, these people who are like, no, I know who you used to be. Like, you were that demon possessed man. You are that demon possessed man. You get to kind of stand there in the confidence that the Lord's given you of like, no, I'm not. Like, he's set me free. And it's hard. It's a hard tension because as much as we don't want to be known as those people ever, our stories are the most like powerful part about us. Like you look in Revelation 12:11, where it's like we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins. Is how he's defeated the enemy once and for all. And also by the word of our testimony, we overcome the enemy every single day by sharing what the Lord has done for us, by setting us free. So which is just hard. Like, it's a hard tension to sit in, especially having a past that's like not always faithful, you know?
Absolutely. And I just remember she sent that back, and I just felt so much peace in knowing that, like, okay, I'm not doing this alone. And like, I don't have to deal with this alone. And like, one, I have the opportunity to like take it to God, but like, two, I have such great community around me that I can tell and I can share with and not feel shame about, because they have seen like the difference and how like Jesus has changed my life. And so I remember after reading that, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm in a place to respond to this person, because when I thought about deleting it, after I'd like calmed down a little bit, I was like, no, deleting it is just hiding that. And like, that's true. However, what an opportunity to share my testimony and share how like Jesus has changed my life, and like not just knowing him, but actively following him has changed my life. And so if I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to have this platform, I want to be real and I want to be honest. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave this comment so anyone can see it. And I'm going to be able to like share and show like how much Jesus has changed my life. So I remember just writing back of like, that's a part of my past that I'm no longer ashamed of. And I'm so grateful for God's like mercy and grace and love that he showed me. And like choosing to follow Jesus has completely changed my life. And haven't heard back from that person since, knock on wood. But I remember just looking at it as a humbling moment, but then just an attack from the enemy of having all this like joy and praise around this good thing that like God has placed in my heart. And then the enemy trying to take that away by using my past experience to do that. And so like, thank you for being just such, and I remember you commenting too, and I was like, okay, I just feel so much better, like having this kind of like love and support, and just someone who gets it and someone who understands, and I can like go through it with. So thank you. But no, just something I wanted to address, and I'm so glad we were talking before. She's like, okay, good, because I was gonna bring it up if not.
Like, you were gonna talk about it, I will.
So just super, super special. But I kind of want to go back. When was kind of the turning point for you, like in your college experience of just living this life and kind of being like, something needs to change? Because I think I call them Jonah and the whale moments, of like, we are humbled so greatly that there's nothing else to kind of cling on to, and like something has to change. So what was kind of your like Jonah in the whale moment?
Well, I like grew up like not in church, but I knew like, oh, Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins. Like, if you were to ask me in high school, I would have been like, oh, I'm a believer. Like, I'm a Christian, you know? And there were like little moments leading up to sophomore year when I finally gave my life to Christ, of like at Hawaii, when during preseason, I got roomed with this girl, CJ, who I love so much. And she was a faithful follower of Jesus. And I remember saying like, oh, I'm a Christian. She's like, oh, she was just saying she's a Christian. I'm like, oh, I'm a Christian too, you know? And she's like, oh my gosh, wait, so you're saving yourself for marriage too? And I remember being like, huh? Like I'm not that type of Christian, you know?
Yeah.
Which was the first kind of like, wait a minute, like I like, I don't think I'm Christian. I don't know. But it kind of got the wheels turning a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I got to my sophomore year of college, again, transferred to Boise State, was heavily involved in the party scene that fall, started hooking up with this guy, and just was like doing everything I thought was like cool and fun. Like had all of the friends that I wanted. We were going out and partying every weekend. Again, like in an unhealthy relationship. And I remember just feeling like more and more miserable, like not just about like my life, but about myself. And I had started to kind of earn playing time, and I was like, everything was kind of like world-wise started to go my way.
Yes.
And I felt like worse. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like something has to be wrong with me. Like I should be so much happier than this. Like, why am I the most depressed I've ever been in my life? Like, I'm so confused. And I remember hearing, like, growing up and just in and around, like, people who call themselves Christians or whatever that is, of just that God, like, fixes people, you know? Like, God fixes people. And so I'm like, like, maybe God will fix me and help me, like, enjoy my life, you know? Like, maybe he's what I'm missing, you know? Not thinking my lifestyle or my life had anything to do with the way that I was feeling, but something was wrong inside me to not be enjoying it. And so I started journaling and reading my Bible. I had no idea what I was doing in reading my Bible. And by that, I mean, like, literally, I was on Christian TikTok, and I, like, and this is so embarrassing, but it's true. I'd be, like, scrolling, and then, like, the little sermon clip of, like, a sermon would pop up, like, the 15-second, like, here's a clip from whatever. And then I'd flip open to my Bible and, like, highlight the verse that they were talking about. Like, that was my version of reading my Bible. And then I'd just be journaling. So I'd journal out, like, how I'm feeling, all my sin, which I didn't know at the time, of just, like, this is how I was feeling, this is what's happening, and this is my prayer of like who I'd want to be, and what I'd want to change. And so I start doing that, and then one night, this is over Christmas break, my sophomore year, I'm reading in Matthew, and it's Matthew 24 verses 42 through 44, and it basically talks about like the Son of Man returning, coming back, which is funny that we're talking about Easter, but which isn't really related, but kind of in my head. And I remember reading, it was, now therefore stay alert, for the Son of Man can come an hour you do not expect. I don't know what, like, finally clicked in my brain. The Holy Spirit just, like, finally just in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this book is real, and God is real, and this is true, and he's actually coming back for us. And the reason I'm so miserable is because my life looks so opposite of the life that God had called me to live. Like, I don't know what light bulb moment finally was like, oh, I'm not following God. I need to follow God. That's what's wrong. And so I gave my life to Christ in my college house, on my dining room table, just by myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's
so
it.
beautiful.
God, like, my life is yours. You can take my life. Like, I want to follow you.
I love that.
Which was kind of my moment. And then, like, drove to my family's house in Meridian. I walk in, I'm like, did y'all know, like, this is real? And my parents are like, what is going on, you know? But I was just so excited to, like, have it finally make sense. Of, like, my misery finally made sense, because I'm not following the Lord.
I love that. That's so beautiful.
Which is awesome. And I hate to, I never want to stop there, because I feel like I've heard so many people just like, and I gave my life to Christ, and we're good. I had a battle out with sin for the next, like, 2-3, still battling sin. But oh my gosh, coming out of the lifestyle of just like partying, drinking, when all of your friends are so heavily in that, as well as like hookup culture and unhealthy relationships, and being heavily involved with this guy at this time. And I'm like, so do I need to, like, end things with him? Like, what do I do?
So you were still with him while you were like going through this journey too.
So, well, actually, right after I got saved, I, like, just ghosted him for a little bit, which is so not proud of, but I just was like, I gotta follow God. I gotta go to church. I'm just not gonna respond to anything he texts me ever again. And we ended up kind of getting back together end of, like, my sophomore year. And he was actually transferring. And I remember like having such a conviction on me of like, I need to have the conversation of I'm no longer going to have sex before marriage. Like I'm going to walk that back. Like I'm going to resave myself for marriage. I'm going to like wait for my husband.
Yeah.
And he was literally transferring, like moving the next day. And I remember sitting down and having that conversation with him. Like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And for a little bit, like he was going to try and follow God and we are going to try to make it. And it was just never going to be like a godly relationship. So we ended like 3 months later.
Okay.
Which was a little bit of my dating history, but was just like, and that I make that sound so easy. And I talk to college girls all the time who are like, but like, I really love this guy, or but I really like, but I really have all of these feelings. And something that I just needed to be told was like, you have to put what you know over what you feel until they both line up.
Absolutely.
Specifically when you're coming out of like unhealthy sexual relationships, because you weren't ever meant to have that bond with anybody outside of marriage.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna feel so wrong coming out of those relationships. It's gonna feel like you shouldn't, because we were created to not ever leave a relationship when we're intimate with somebody like that. And so I just had to get to the point where I'm like, I know that he doesn't love God. I know I love God, and I know that this is wrong, and I know I shouldn't be with him. And all of my heart was going this way. And I'm just like, man, no, I need to choose what I know over what I feel until they both line up. Yeah, and then finally like got the courage. to end it. Which it was just like, those relationships are hard to end.
So
and as much as you're like following the Lord, like they're just, you're not supposed to for a reason, because you get so emotionally entangled.
Yes. And it's so hard when you love the person so much and they have so many great qualities about them, but their heart doesn't love Jesus. And like, that is the most important part, because they could have everything else, but if they are not on fire for the Lord, and like, I always say there's Christian guys, but there's then like men of God. And it is such a difference, because I think what I can speak on being surrounded by guys in college is they would claim to like post Bible verses. And I mean, granted, I was doing the same stuff.
Totally.
So I can't really, speak for that. But it's just like, but then knowing what they were actually doing and what we were actually doing. And just not actually following Jesus and knowing him, but not living the lifestyle and having him like truly work in our lives and submitting everything to him. And so I think it's hard to date when that's all you're kind of surrounded by, and that's kind of the expectation. And I know that's like a lot of colleges everywhere. So I think it's hard when you're living the lifestyle and that's what everyone around you, Christ followers or not, everyone around you is doing, and you want to feel like you fit in. And ultimately, like, these are your teammates. These are the people that you're closest with. These are the people that you can relate to on a certain level, especially being an athlete and knowing like there's just like a bigger expectation for us in regards to like school and not getting in trouble and like all these things. And so having that community, but then everyone is kind of doing the same thing, you just think it's normal. Yeah. So after you started following Christ, where was that kind of like resistance of, I can't be living like this lifestyle anymore, but then the people that you love and care about and your closest friends around you are still kind of in it? Where did that resistance kind of happen?
Yeah, I would say definitely with like partying, drinking, all my friends were all in unhealthy relationships too. And so I felt really weird now being, and also like, again, going back to the story of like the deemed cis man of like, but you were just doing that. You know, you were
absolutely.
just like
that.
that.
Who are you to say, like, I know what you were doing last week. Like, why are you different now? Yeah.
Yes. Like, why are you all this, like, you've already like had sex. You're going to act like you're not going to anymore. Like, I don't understand. And same with like partying, drinking. Also, that was more so, I just had FOMO. Like, all my friends would go out. All my friends were going downtown and all the things. And I'm just like, I either choose to be alone or I go out with them. And I talk to so many college girls who this is their predicament too, of just like, well, if I don't go out, if I'm not with all my friends, like I'm gonna be alone.
Yes.
Like I'm gonna be alone. And sometimes obedience looks a lot like isolation in different seasons. And you're sometimes gonna be the only one. And I didn't do it well for a really long time. Like all through my junior year, even into my senior year, it was just like a struggle. And then when I finally got plugged in with the porch, had some community there. And started to get to know some people. There's a very faithful woman she wasn't on staff, but she felt like she was on staff for me, named Rachel, who just would consistently be like, hey, how are you doing? You know, tell me. And she knew my whole mess, my whole everything. She was my first small group leader, and was just like, so how did you do this week? You know, how are you doing this week? And just would consistently check up on me, which having that accountability, like changes your world. For sure. Having people who are like living a lifestyle that you want to live, who are holding you accountable to what you're doing. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think of James 5:16, which is therefore confess your sins to one another, and pray for one another that you may be healed. Yeah. Like confession is so important. And also the prayer piece of having somebody who's going to faithfully pray over you after you're sharing. Yeah. Just everything that you keep getting tripped up in, and just the patience that she had that I feel like I now get to have with college girls of like, okay, like, oh yeah, if you fell again, and that's okay, and we're gonna get back up, and we're gonna start following the Lord again, and having somebody continually like pull me, which was really sweet. But it was definitely like a fight for years of, I'm sure, being surrounded by all the things that I was once a part of, and still like find myself like almost, I felt like I was just getting pulled back in, pulled back out, pulled back in, pulled back out, like the whole for years, until I finally chose like, okay, I'm going to choose isolation. And I'm just not going to go. And I'm just going to choose to be by myself. Wow. And I'm just going to stay home and read my Bible and stay home and listen to a sermon. And it was like, I feel like such a loser. Oh my gosh, I feel like such a loser. But it was like in those moments where it really felt like it was just me and the Lord, which my faith really grew. And I felt more and more of a call in my life to be pulled to ministry. But it wasn't until I took that time to like, I'm going to give God like everything. I'm going to give him the moments where I want to be seen by other people, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to be like with my friends and having fun. But I'm going to give him the obedience instead and just see what comes from it. Which like, it's in those moments where I feel like my faith really, really grew. Yeah. Too.
No, I love that. How did that kind of translate? Obviously, like you played soccer at Boise. How did that kind of translate to athletics? Because I think there's such an identity shift there too when you start following Jesus. And like I unfortunately like didn't get that opportunity while I was an athlete. Like I always knew that I always knew about Jesus, and I knew that he loved me and my sins were forgiven, but I wasn't actively following him. So when the moment came for my dance career at Boise State was done, I had such a loss of identity. Yeah. And so how was that kind of working through when it came to athletics and soccer for you?
Yeah. Good question. I feel like, so when I first got saved, I felt like I just started to earn a starting spot, got the playing time. And the first verse that really stuck with me that I like still carry with my faith is Matthew 4:12. Maybe, which I should know this, but I think it's Matthew 4:12, which it's now follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Like Jesus talking to his disciples of like, hey, you were fishermen and now you're gonna fish for men. Yeah. And I like my heart just grabbed onto that of like my teammates went from like my competition and the people, because I was also like, especially in high school, I was just mean. Like, I was just mean. I was mean to everybody who was worse than me, and I'm going to make sure you knew that you were worse than me, even if you weren't. And I was just mean. I was arrogant. I was prideful. After I got saved, I'm like, these girls are my ministry. And I don't know what, like, flipped in my head. Well, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. That's what flipped in my head. For sure, yeah. But they went from, like, my competition to I need to tear everybody down so I can get to the top to, like, these girls are meant to encourage. I'm meant to uplift. And along with that, the Lord was kind to me in a way that I didn't think was kind at first. And just junior year, started to get phased out of playing time. Senior year, I didn't really play at all for a number of different reasons. But I think in that, it really helped me solidify, like, no, my purpose here isn't to be like the star soccer player. It isn't to get all the minutes, and you can be a leader by not being at the top. Because I think for a really long time too, I was like, man, God, now that I'm saved, like, I'm gonna get the starting spot, and like, now that I have it, like, God's gonna use me to do all these big things because I'm up front and I'm a leader. And then lost all that over time, and it was just like, God can't use me now because I'm not in this like leadership position on my team. But then got to see just how much God got to use me because my mind wasn't focused on as much soccer and needing to be in this place of where I was the best in order for people to follow me. I could be a leader from the bottom up and really pour into the people around me. And it really like had this mindset of like, okay, who's around me that I need to love well. And also, I needed to get myself out of the way first a lot. Let's start there. It was really hard, really humbling to not be
for sure.
the best, to not be like this soccer player and have this really awesome, just awesome career where I finished and I'm like, I did it all and I won the championships and I did all, like, I was the girl, you know, I really wanted to be the girl. And God in his kindness didn't ever allow me to be, which at the time I'm like, how dare you? Like, I put all this work, my whole life was going into this, and looking back, I can see in the times that I did get myself out of the way first and let God move, like he did like work through me, which was just like, those are the moments when I look back on my soccer career that I'm like, those meant the most. And I don't think like a championship or like it wouldn't have compared to seeing a girl at the porch 2 years later who's like, I gave my life to Christ and just like following the Lord now, and life's completely changed. You could see just like the color had come back to her. And there's just like moments like that, I'm gonna cry, that I hold on to of just like, man, the Lord did like eternal work when I was able to get out of his way and not hold on to what I thought was success looked like, and give to him like what he wanted to do through me. So
I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing all that. I think it's so special because you were able to like see that impact while you were going through college. And I like look back now, and even just the athletes that like I knew, watching their journeys with God, not just like on dance, but on all different sports, and how like FCA is such a big thing at Boise. I didn't even know what FCA was till like I came to GCU.
Well, FCA wasn't a thing at Boise State when I first got there, because I became a believer and I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? Yeah, I know. But there's like, I'm like, where's FCA? And one of my teammates like, oh, they haven't met in years. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so sad. But just having like the new athletic director there, like he's such an incredible man of God and has completely changed that department and has completely changed the like lives of those student athletes, and even just like the football coach, and watching just athletes that you and I both know, and now they're like, obviously it's their walk with Christ, and we only see what is shared with us, but just I feel like you can tell when someone is being truthful and honest with their walk in with Christ, and when they're maybe like hiding behind something else. And so just watching those journeys of like those people not being afraid, because honestly I was like afraid to share like the gospel and talk about my faith throughout college, and especially like just kind of the people around me. And I feel like honestly during COVID, like a lot of Christians were really ridiculed for like having a faith. And I definitely felt that throughout my college experience, and I was in a place where I felt like I wasn't Christian enough for the Christian people that I knew in Boise, but then I was too Christian for like my friends who are non-believers. And so I felt like I was in that lukewarm state for so long because I wanted the best of both worlds. And so I think the one regret I have looking back on college, it's not, oh, I wish we would have won nationals. Oh, I wish I would have had better spots and routines. It's like, I wish I would have been a better teammate. Yeah. I wish I would have been, now I'm going to get emotional, a better like athlete to my coach. And I wish I would have held myself to a higher standard, because if I wasn't getting the like attention that I needed from my team, I was seeking it elsewhere through social media or through boys or whatever. And it was not the healthy type of attention. And so just now, like, that I'm not ashamed of my faith and I'm so vocal about it, like, I've noticed, and it's not, I don't like want to say it's because of me or make it come across that way, but I've just noticed that people in my life who have maybe reached out to me are more vocal about their faith now, where maybe they hit it too. And even just like old teammates who are now so vocal about their faith that we both knew we were Christians while we were on the team, but we never shared that. We never did a Bible study together. We never like talked about Jesus. Like, I remember we prayed before as a team before we went out to perform pregame at every football game, and we prayed before we went on stage for nationals, but like that was about it. At least individually, there's so much more that I wish I could have done, and I wish I could have been a better teammate in that way. And I think that's like the biggest regret that I have is I look back and I was not being the best influence. I was not being a good leader. I was not living a lifestyle and showing to these like young freshmen. Like, if anything, I was poorly influencing the freshmen, like those poor girls, and now they're seniors and they're all doing great things. Thank the Lord. But it's just like I wasn't being the best influence that I could be. And so I think that is my biggest regret at the end of the day. The like, I forget what verse it is, but the rewards we store up here on earth like don't matter. It's the rewards that we store up like in heaven. And that is just like the one regret that I have is, and I know like it doesn't dwell on me every day, but I know it's just something that I think about of looking back on different athletes and stuff at Boise who are now like walking with God and walking with Christ of, oh, I wish I could have been a good influence in that way. But praise Jesus that they've like come to him on their own terms, which is like the most beautiful thing. But yeah, just kind of wild. So I'm grateful that like you had that experience and you had that journey, but it makes us better people for sure.
Totally. And even looking back on the times where like I didn't do that well, and then I see like a girl who had come to Christ where I'm like, I felt like the Lord was totally inviting me to be a part of that. And I totally just like shoved it to the side to chase what I wanted to chase. And the times where I didn't do that and I was actually able to be a part of what he was doing was so sweet. But yeah, definitely feel the regret too of, like he was inviting me to be a part of that and I said no, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what is something that you can kind of like share when it comes to just like not feeling shame? I know we kind of talked about this at Bible study, and I had kind of brought up like, well, I feel like I'm in a place where I don't feel that shame anymore because I know I've been forgiven. But then I swear, like, even just this week, I was talking to someone on the phone of like, full transparency, there's been people in my life who have spread rumors that like aren't true regarding, and like it is such an attack from the enemy because it's regarding things of my past that I no longer do or no longer like participate in. And I hold so much pride in the fact that I am so different now, but then when it gets brought back up, it like brings up that shame and that guilt again. So I guess like for you, what has been a good reminder of like the redemption and the love that Jesus has like shown in your life when those things do kind of come up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think of two things. One, the first is pretty simple that I forget every single day. I need to remind myself all the time. Is like our reputation isn't ours to protect, it's the Lord's. And it humbles me every time because I'm just like, I know that there's people out there from like my high school or from college or just know a different version of me that no longer exists, but does into them and for did for a really long time. Like definitely that girl was very much real and very much damaging to a lot of people around her. And so remembering that like where I'm at now and what I'm doing now, like my reputation from who I have been isn't mine to like try to protect or try to rewrite. Like that, I gave my life to the Lord. Like my reputation is now the Lord's, and he's not worried about what other people are saying or thinking or whatever. Like he's going to do what he's going to do through me regardless of how he's going to do it. So first thing I think of is remembering just like, okay, my reputation isn't mine to protect, and they can think what they want. And that. I can remember that I'm washed, I'm clean, I'm pure, I'm made new. And I can tell myself that over and over and over again. But I think it's funny because I think in moving here, I'd been really content in like singleness. I was telling you a little bit, I was in a recovery ministry and I got to actually go through a recovery program. So I took a year off of dating during that, which like at first I was like, oh, this is going to be so awesome. I'm going to learn the curriculum. I'm going to learn how to do ministry. It's going to be so great. Wrecked my whole life in the best way. And God just got to rewrite so many things that I believed wrongly about him due to like past experiences and sin and just other people's sin and all of things. So that was really sweet, but I had been pretty content in singleness until moving here alone. So I moved to Phoenix alone. All my friends on staff, they're all married, which is awesome. They're all about to have their first kids. And I'm starting to feel the, like just the little bit of, man, I want that. And also having never been in a relationship with a guy who really loves the Lord, the enemy will so quickly turn that to, man, like I'm really loud about my story, specifically that I've had sex before marriage or that I used to party a lot in college or that I've lived this loud, messy life before knowing Jesus. And I'm really open and loud about it because I'm like, when I was in college, I needed a girl in church who was loud about who she used to be, who I could look to and be like, okay, and you're free now. How do I get there? How do I follow that? Like, what did you do to get free? And that's why I felt pulled into ministry, is just because I wanted to be that girl for somebody. And so I'm very loud and open about my story. With that, the enemy will sneak in behind and be like, and that's why you're not married. That's why you're not married, because you're not like this quiet, submissive, faithful woman who has lived a life of faithfulness. Like you've lived a really loud, messy life, and there's not going to be a guy that is going to sign on to that. And I've noticed that recently, especially being back, like by being in Phoenix. I keep saying being back, like I've been here before. But being in Phoenix, and just I've noticed those lies creep in of like, man, maybe that's why I'm not married, Yeah. It's because I'm loud about my story. So if I'm ever going to get married, I need to kind of, which is just like saying it out loud even. That is the biggest thing that I think we can do shame-wise is like say that out loud. Because as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, that is so the enemy trying to shut me up and keep me from being a good influence. Absolutely. Keep me from sharing the most powerful part of my life is where I've come from, what I've done, and where God's brought me. And in that, I think he'll, like, when I let those lies sit and be like, no, it's not that big of a deal, and I don't say them out loud, I'm just going to force it to the back of my mind and, like, not think about it. The enemy, like, creates a stronghold there of, okay, that's a belief that my heart's now taking on. Yeah. And because my old pastor, Jonathan Pokluda, says this a lot, is your heart doesn't want what it wants what it's fed. And so when you start feeding your heart those little lies of, okay, you're not married because you're loud about your story, you're not married because you've had sex before marriage, you're not married because you live like this life that's unashamed to your sin, like you should feel more shame about your sin, you should be quieter about it. And you start feeding that, your heart starts to believe that, like, oh, that's why this guy hasn't asked me out. Like, that's why I haven't dated a godly man yet, which is so just not true.
It's so not true. That's the worst part is like the enemy will like feed us lies about ourselves and like use our past and what we're like ashamed of or scared of about our past to, or even like our present, and to use against us. And it is such a lie.
Yeah. Well, something that was really helpful for me, like, so a gift from the Lord. It's one of my best friends, Gracie, has lived like a very faithful life. She became a believer at, I think it was like age 6 or 8, like and has just like lived a very faithful life. She's one of the most godly women I know. And I look at her life and I'm like, oh, like I wish I would have lived like that, She's never dated anyone, never dated the wrong guys, never dated anyone. Wow. And just as like, that's like such a purity to me that I wish I had, like, and I wish I could give like my future future husband. I know purity is like a little bit of a trigger word, but just like, me and I look at her and she's like this girl that I wish like a story that I wish I had. And then in talking with her, as we're getting to like know each other and become really close friends, she's one of my best friends now. She was like her insecurity comes from, I've never dated anyone, and no guy's gonna want to date me because I've never dated anyone. And I'm like, wait, that's like the same. That's the same voice, but it's just flipped.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really awesome for me. Like, and she doesn't even know that. That was so helpful for me. Maybe I need to tell her. But it was just like, wait, the enemy uses the exact same lies for everybody. He just flips it to fit their narrative.
Absolutely.
So it's like your past is going to keep you from living this life, or your past is going to keep you from being married. Same lie, looks different based off our stories.
Absolutely.
And so even the biggest thing for me is having like a group of girls, which I'm looking to build here. But I had a group of girls in Texas where we'd meet every single week and just talk about like how we fed our soul, basically what our Bible times look like, what God's been teaching us, and how we fed our flesh, and just confess sin. Be like, hey, here's where the enemy's been eating my lunch. These are lies I've been believing. Will you like speak truth over them? Like this is where my heart's at. This is what I know God's word to say. This is where my heart's at, and I need some help like reconciling those two things. And so just having people in your life that you can be vulnerable with to share like, hey, this is what I'm believing. Like, will you help me? Like, will you speak life over me? Will you just pray for me? Honestly, like you don't need to, like, I know what the Bible says. I know what God says is true. Will you just, I just want to throw this in the light and put it like as many spotlights on it as possible. Because that's where it loses its power. And then will you just pray? Because I need some help reconciling my head to my heart right now.
Absolutely.
Which has been the most powerful thing that I've found that you can do when it comes to shame. And even like in our small group, when we all started talking about it, it's like, it's slowly, you say it out loud. I say these things out loud of like, I'm never going to get married because of my past. And it's like, it just loses its power.
Absolutely.
It has so much power when it's in here, and I say it out loud and I'm like, oh, that's not true.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And when we share it with others too, it's actually so much more relatable than we think. And there was something that my friend, when I was kind of telling her, like, even just the kind of rumors that I heard were going around, like just in this week, I knew I was going to like have this episode with you, and I kind of had just like a feeling of what we were going to talk about and share. And I was like, how crazy that the week of one, Easter, but like the week that we're recording this, and the topic and like the title that I've been kind of like running in my head of someone trying to bring up something about my past, ultimately like the enemy bringing up things about my past to use against me. And she just kind of reminded me of, Lexi, I know this is hard, but there is so much joy after you walk through that with Jesus. And like when you're on the other side of it, there is so much joy and comfort in that. And so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, just like finding that joy and just that peace with that for sure. Yeah. But you are just like so well spoken and have just such an amazing like story, and like thank you for being so real and honest and like sharing truth. And like you are seriously like the perfect person that I thought of to have come on the podcast. And just like, one, I knew you were gonna be great, but two, you've just like blown me away with like everything you've said. And just like getting to reconnect and like talk about this has been so special. And so to kind of wrap it up, what advice would you give to maybe a girl who's like going or walking through a similar lifestyle that we were, that is feeling this tug but unsure of like what that might be, or unsure of where to kind of go with her life, or scared of what happens if she does choose to give up that lifestyle and follow Jesus?
Man.
Girl or guy, I should say.
Girl or guy. Sorry. Either one of you.
Sorry, guys, if you're listening. You're involved
guys,
in
you're
this.
also invited to follow Jesus.
My bad.
I think of the verse, it's like you can't love both the world and God. Like you can't have two masters. Like you can't serve both God and money. You can't serve both God and whatever it is. And you either believe the Bible is true or you don't. Yeah. And it sounds like I'm whacking people over the head with the Bible, which is not my point at all. But it's more of a call of you can put all your weight in what scripture says. Like you can put all your weight in who God says he is, and you can put it to the test. Like you really can. And a lot of the times it's literally just that, I mean, it's faith. It's that step between I know what I have here, and even though it doesn't feel great or it leaves me empty, or at least I'm not like lonely and I know what to expect and it's comfortable, like I'm more comfortable in my sin, then I don't know what to expect when I follow God. Like, I don't know what to expect when I choose obedience. In that little space in between is like the most important decision you can make, because you can't do both. You can't do both. You literally just simply cannot. And when you try, it's the most miserable thing. Because you know God, but you're like trying to hold on to your sin, and just bet on it. Like actually bet on it.
I love that.
Because there's that jump, right? There's that jump where it's like, but I don't know. And that's the point. Like jump and see what the Lord could potentially do with your life. Like you don't know. And I remember, so I've had a fear of public speaking since I was like born, probably, honestly. Like fair, I hate public speaking. And I started doing my residency, and I'm like, we had to get up in front of our classmates, 8 people, every single week, and like talk about what we were learning, read like this book or whatever, and they draw our names out of this hat. I was the most anxious I've ever been in my life.
Gosh,
I'm like,
that gives me anxiety thinking about it.
Literally horrible. And then by the end of the year, I was up in front of thousands of Baylor students sharing my story.
Wow, that's so cool.
Again, such a wreck like beforehand, but just to see like the faithfulness of the Lord. Of if you would have told me my sophomore year of college, after I gave my life to Jesus, that I'd be doing college ministry, that I'd be like discipling girls every day, that I'd be talking on a stage, that I'd be doing this and that, I would have literally laughed in your face and been like, that kind of girl could just never be me. Like, you don't understand. And like, I'd look at people who are up leading in churches and be like, I mean, that's cool. But like, because of I'm where I'm at, like that'll just never be me. And if I hadn't just literally bet on God and his word being true, I wouldn't be like where I'm at. Because he just wouldn't have, like, I wouldn't have given them the opportunity to absolutely uproot my life and change it and make it into something that I'm like really proud of. Like I'm really excited to be living this life for him. And I'm like the most confident I've ever been, on top of like battling shame every day, but like definitely the most confident I've ever been, the most sure of where I'm at. And I'm like never been more sure that I'm walking in the Lord's provision for his plan for my life, and just the peace and the contentment and the joy and all the things that Christians talk about all the time, but like people struggle to actually believe that you can experience. That's true for me. That's true for my life, because I chose to lay aside those things and actually give God the chance to uproot my life and make it about him. And there was a lot of uprooting to be done. Let me say that truth. As soon as you give your life to Christ, it's not all of a sudden this like beautiful rainbows. Now that's awesome. It all makes sense.
Easy
it's like,
thing.
Oh, sin hurts to be removed. Still does. Still breaks your heart.
It's a battle every single day.
It's a battle every single day. And the less you give to the world and the more you give to God, the more of that fruit you get to experience. And I just hope to talking to the 20-year-old guy or girl who is like, man, is it worth it? It is. And to literally just bet on it and just see what happens.
I love that so much. Bet on it. That's going to be my new saying. No, but seriously, like I had high expectations about this, like just being excited about this. But seriously, like what we've talked about and just the truth you've spoken has completely blown me away. So thank you so much. Like this was seriously all of it, just like so intricately written by God. Truly. And just so beautiful to see it like come together. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thanks for having me. And it's been so much fun. But I appreciate you so much, and just like your story and your journey. So thank you. Yeah. Thanks for giving me a place to tell it. Of course. Absolutely. Always. So, but thank you guys so much for listening or watching this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. And to check out more content and stay up to date, make sure to follow the 20 Effect podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And I just want you to remember that no matter what you're going through, we're in this together. Bye, y'all.